Diane Scott, and welcome to the Best Boss podcast. I'm very pleased to introduce Elaine Lin Hering. She's a former managing partner at a global leadership development firm and faculty at Harvard Law School. She's a facilitator, speaker, and writer who works with organizations globally and individuals to help build communication, collaboration, and conflict management. Her book, Unlearning Silence: How to Speak Your Mind, Unleash Talent, and Live More Fully, it's actually a paradigm shift that really explores the pervasive negative impact of silence in our personal and professional lives and offers a roadmap to dismantle it. I'm so glad to have you and welcome very much, Elaine.
Thanks for having me, Diane.
Um, Question about what is unlearning silence?
Yeah, given my legal training, I love a good definition of terms. So
Mhm.
let's actually start with silence and then we'll get to the unlearning.
Mhm.
So, silence, I'm not talking about the meditative pause between stimulus and response or that moment on your yoga mat, even though we may all want more of that in our lives. The silence I'm talking about is when there's not enough room in the relationship, on the team for your needs, goals, hopes, and concerns. When your boss says, my door is always open, but they're
Mm.
actually not there, or they say, I want to hear what you have to say, but the minute you say it, they shut you down,
Mm.
that you weren't invited to the meeting and didn't think you had to ask, right? All these ways in which we feel the need or are pressured to, or people's other reactions to us, silence us, diminish us, lead us to thinking, you know what? In order to keep the peace, I've got to bite my tongue. It doesn't make sense to rock the boat. So if that's the silence we're talking about, then the unlearning is
Mm.
this recognition that throughout our lives, whether it is our families of origin, the way that we grew up, the teams that we were on, that first boss that shot us a look when we said something, most of us have learned silence to
Mm.
edit out the parts of ourselves or the opinions that do not seem welcome in the relationship or in the system, and that we've benefited from doing that. We are then a good team player. We get promoted, but then we're also not executive leadership material, right? It comes back to bite you later. If we have learned silence, then the question is, how does silence impact my life and my leadership now? And to the extent that it is getting in the way of how I want to show up and how I want to live and lead, then in what ways might I excavate my understanding of silence and choose a different way? Unlearn the things that do not serve me and who I want to become. There's another piece of this, of course, that relates to bosses, which is the hard reality is that we end up silencing people even when we don't intend.
Mm. Can you give me an example?
Absolutely. Let's have this call at 9 a.m. and I don't realize that you're not a morning person. And that actually 9 a.m. for you is when you've just gotten your kids out the door, you're still scrambling, all these things. You're not firing on all cylinders.
Mm.
But you know who is a morning person? I
Goodbye.
am, as your boss, right? So I'm playing in prime time for me, which is not necessarily prime time for you. And this is one of the things that bosses, especially bad bosses, get wrong, which is if we're not intentional about the way that we work, how we design our patterns and preferences and account for preferences, we end up defaulting to the time zone, the medium, right? Are we on the phone? Are we on video? Are we writing? Are we texting? Are we typing? Is it real time? Is it asynchronous? We default to all of the things that benefit the boss because human nature is to assume that everyone's like us.
It's understanding. Oh, this is what I would like. So therefore, and
And sometimes I don't even realize it's what I like. It's just what's always been done or what I've always done or what I inherited from my other boss as best practice without realizing that there's a differential impact on someone who might be different.
it's
Surprise, surprise.
it's
That inclines them towards silence.
part of me thinks it's almost a shared responsibility. Like it's for me to unlearn silence and to
Yes.
speak up about preferences.
Yes.
And it's for you, the boss, especially if you're trying to be the best boss, to ask observe and ask for preferences. So it's like a shared responsibility.
Exactly. Exactly. And that is the insight of unlearning silence, which is most of what is on the market in leadership development says, if you're not getting heard, you need to speak up more, better, louder. The problem is you.
Yeah, more, better, louder. I love that because speaking up doesn't mean just giving a piece of your mind. It actually is more, better, and louder.
Well, that's the advice, except it only goes so far,
Oh,
right? If you speak up more, you speak up louder, but people still don't want to hear you, or you're not, they are silencing you by not considering you. And, we were just talking about different communication modes and preferences, but there's so much more there that we can dive into. It really is that shared responsibility, that both and of how do I unlearn the ways that I might have made myself small or learned to stay small or learn to stay silent? And in what ways can best bosses really unleash talent by taking into account the barriers that we don't intend to put there?
mm,
By listening to us rather than to their own reaction, right? Chapter 5 of my book is 9 different ways that bosses and people end up silencing each other, but certainly plays exactly into being a boss.
can you give me a common, not badly intended one, but often seen one?
Mm. So the medium one is a big one, is probably the most common that we don't realize that there are some people who are post processors that meaning
Okay.
there's some of us who are in a meeting, we can't figure out what to say. And 20 minutes after the meeting, I'm like, that's what I wanted to say,
Uh,
right? There's that profile, which I'd term a post processor. And in engineering speak, your brain needs time to cache and compile, right? To sort, to think and synthesize your thoughts. In contrast, there are real time processors where the more we talk something out, the more clear it gets.
mm,
On a team or in a boss team member relationship, that's a really painful pairing. It's the boss who says, let's jump on a call and talk it through. And the team members who are like, that's not going to help, but I can't tell you that it's not going to help because
because I'm silent.
you're my boss. But to your point of it being a shared responsibility, if we observed and discussed it or felt license, my unlearning my silence to say, look, I really want to offer my best thoughts and insights. Can we actually talk in 2 hours?
Yeah.
Or over, let me sleep on it, or let me put initial thoughts to in an email to sort through all the complexity, and then let's talk about it.
So if I'm a best boss, I observe how you respond to
Mhm.
requests, respond to actions, respond, um, and uh, and understand how to maximize your potential by
Yes.
understanding what works for you. But I also own it by understanding me
Yeah.
and feeling that I can say this to you.
Yes. I actually would up the ante. A best boss would say, look, we as human beings are different. What do you know about yourself in how you work best?
Mm,
Are you a typer? Are you a talker? I tend to be a talker, and I'm conscious that like, that can be overbearing sometimes. So if
mm,
I'm yammering on, please tell me to stop. Tell me
yeah,
you need time to think because what I want is actually for both of us to be able to uh, bring our best thoughts and insights.
yeah. I really appreciate that. It's not unlearning silence is it's taking assumptions a little bit off the table
Mhm.
and it's almost understanding what works for the communications space, whatever one-on-one group, whatever that it is. So if I was aspiring to get to that pinnacle best boss status,
Mm,
what's my first step?
Awareness. Awareness that we are all wired differently, which when we stop and think about it, makes complete sense. Except in most workplaces, that post processing, for example, is termed as a weakness. And you get performance review feedback that says you need to be quicker on your feet, more responsive in the moment, versus we're wired differently. How do we optimize the way we work for it?
Mm, mm. It's a combination of you speaking up, me observing your self-awareness as a person, as a
Mhm.
boss, It's,
Mhm.
often a lot of my best bosses are very aware of other people,
Mhm.
in terms of what works for them. The best bosses can unleash that potential,
Yes.
in the person. How do you
Yes.
work with companies then with this paradigm?
Mhm.
What do you
Mhm.
do?
Yeah. Before I answer that, can I give you one more of
Please.
what a best boss would do?
Mm,
Because a best boss would also use their social capital to help the
mm,
person they lead see themselves more clearly or see the validity of what they bring more clearly. What do I mean by that? Diane, you're closest to the data. So I really want to hear
mm,
what you see. Or, you know what, you're 2 weeks into the job, and you may be thinking,
mm.
I've got to figure out what's going on here, metabolize it all, but actually you come with fresh eyes. You can see what we who have been working on this for 3 years cannot see, and we need that perspective.
It has a little bit of um, trust and faith that there is a perspective, like and also the
Yeah.
vulnerability that I don't need it because I have you who could.
Yes. And that my valuing your perspective does not diminish my own. It
Uh,
is acknowledging the reality that we each have a different vantage point from where we sit. And there is both legitimacy and limitation to what we can see. But the power of a team and the power of a best boss is someone who can say, I'm not threatened by what you have to bring. I want you to bring it all. I'm going to bring it all. And we're putting together puzzle pieces, and together we'll have a more full data set
as a matter
from
of
which we can
fact,
make better decisions.
I'm not only not threatened by it, I'm glad that you have it because
Oh my gosh.
and that's why you're here. It's the
Yes.
team of rivals type of thing situation, except it's a team of um, skill set, insights, and you don't want to. It used to be way back in the day when I was a leader that they said you should be able to do every job that works underneath you. That is so not what we're talking here. We're talking here that it's a collaboration
Yeah.
and bringing it out. Oh, that's fascinating.
Why would you hire other people if you could do it all other than to try to build your own fiefdom versus I'm going to hire to add?
Mhm.
So, to your question of what do I do with organizations, I am trying to accurately diagnose, help them see the problem more clearly, because often it is whether people speak up, whether they're engaged, whether they're bringing their best expertise to work, right? The advice is just do it. Some version of speak up. And as much as I love a good Nike Cortez shoe, just do it doesn't cut it because of the real and perceived costs and barriers to speaking up. So the question is not how do we get our people to speak up more, better, louder? The question is, what role does silence play on our teams and in my own leadership? Starting from the top, right? What is that blind spot that I, because I am a human being, end up silencing the very people that I want to support?
Mm.
And how do I own that? And to the shared responsibility piece, how do we help people unlearn their own silence? How do we unlearn the blind spots of ways we silence them? And then in what ways is silence baked into the systems we're all part of in our policies and our practices?
The word is unlearn. Unlearn what we have either been rewarded
Hmm.
or chastised for in the past,
Hmm.
to
Hmm.
unlearn it. A little bit of bravery, a lot of self-awareness. Um,
My book is broken down in two sections
mhm,
that I think actually maps how we unlearn, which is awareness.
mhm,
You can't get to the right solution if you're not asking the right question.
mhm,
So, awareness that silence is a thing. It's not you're missing confidence or courage that you need to fix yourself. It's that there's this thing called silence that is part of life, and let's solve for it. And then action. What can we actually do? Starting with small experiments,
mhm.
right? Starting with that conversation of how do you work best? Or what happens if we move the meeting to 1 p.m. because actually, for some reason, we tend to be better in the afternoon.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't work, let's move it back. But that you are embodying continuous learning and experimentation, which is at the heart of innovation and, most things that most people are striving for.
I mean, this is such a fascinating subject that, I've danced around this topic in my coaching for the past 22 years. it's so helpful to have a roadmap to show people how to do it. It's one thing to know that
Mhm.
this is an issue. Now, okay, I get it. Now what do I do?
Yeah.
So I can't thank you enough. And one last question. Who was your best boss?
Mm, my best boss was actually the Sunday school teacher that I grew up with,
Oh, share.
which is, Auntie May is what I called her. She was 4 feet, 2 inches tall, but just thoughtful and not looking for the spotlight, not look it wasn't about her. It was about all the kids that she cared for, and then, I was sort of the teacher in the mix there, but that leading by example of who are we really here to serve, what are we really here to do, left such an impression.
Hmm. That permeates you to this day.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I can't thank you enough for not only your time and agreeing. How can people get in touch with you if they want to work more with you or learn more about you?
Yeah, I'm ElaineLinHering.com or the same full name, Elaine Lin Hering on LinkedIn, and would love to connect.
Hmm. Great. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Elaine Lin Hering. Her book, Unlearning Silence, How to Speak Your Mind, Unleash Talent, and Live More Fully, is available on Amazon. We'll put the link down below. And thank you for joining us on the Best Boss podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Bye bye.